In 2022, directors Danny and Michael Phillipou stunned us with their feature debut, Talk to Me. The duo is back with another foray into the horror genre with their sophomore release of Bring Her Back. Now, this delves into a few different types of horror and also contains some very shocking imagery. But does the story deliver? A brother and sister uncover a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. So the story follows Andy and Piper, two newly orphaned siblings who are sent to stay with a foster mom for a few months before Andy turns 18 and can apply for guardianship. Andy, he's overprotective, and Piper is mostly blind, fueling Andy's drive to keep his little sister safe. Sally Hawkins plays Laura, the foster mom who has had to work through her own tragedy and grief. But then when the kids arrive at Laura's to stay, Andy's hackles are raised because something just seems a bit off. Now, this movie digs into supernatural, family, even body horror territory, creating this low-level sense of continuous dread. And that's where I can appreciate the director's growth from their debut of Talk to Me. In that film, while there was some wonderfully unnerving tension, it was delivered in an uneven manner, breaking the anxiety, which then took time to ramp back up, which then in the end diminished the overall suspense and apprehension. In Bring Her Back, the Phillipous start off almost immediately with an uneasy vibe and then never let that go. They then slowly and methodically layer on the pressure so that we feel the growing trepidation to just drive us up and over the cliff. Now, there's a large focus on family trauma within the storytelling, but the plot doesn't approach it from a preachy or commentary standpoint. Instead, it uses that as the backbone for all that's going to unfurl. From a story progression standpoint, this is a fairly predictable layout. I mean, I'm not saying all that happens within the movie is obvious, just that we can pretty accurately point to how the overarching storyline is going to play out. And I'm not considering that aspect as a negative at all. The plot is straightforward and easy to follow, but what transforms this from just an ordinary run-of-the-mill creepy tale to an unhinged freak fest is all of the unexpected and startling actions that take place. There are so many moments within this where I was literally squirming and audibly gasping. I mean, if I were watching myself watch the film, I would have been laughing because I had to look ridiculous at just how physically freaked out I became. And this wasn't from fear-based horrors or jump scares. I mean, this was from the sheer brutality and gruesomeness of so many actions and visuals. I mean, I don't want you to think that I didn't jump at times, because there were probably at least 2 or 3 separate moments that I did jump, but it wasn't thanks to some cheaply crafted scare. It was purely out of an intense abruptness combined with the visceral way that the action was captured. Now, for example, without any type of context, a character slips. It seems innocuous, but it was the speed and the force at which it was executed that made me react. But I'd be shorting the film and the practical effects teams, as well as the makeup artists, if I didn't give kudos to the excessively grotesque and nauseating visuals. I mean, this creatively takes scenarios where we think we know what's going to happen, and then turns them on their head to deliver something far more heinous. At one point in the film, there's this lengthy sequence that reminded me of when a dog gets hold of something that they're not supposed to have, and then when confronted, they gobble it up even faster to remove the evidence. That's sort of the same mentality is at play here, and it is uncomfortably humorous. I mean, I was so torn on whether to turn my head or shield my eyes from what was happening, or if I would just force myself to keep taking it all in and then suffer the mental anguish and trauma for the next several hours. I chose to watch. Now I'm a bit scarred. There's a great deal of body horror contained within this, and I don't think there was any CGI at play within the movie, save for maybe manipulating some weather. The prosthetics and the makeup are just fantastically produced, giving a shocking sense of realness to what's occurring. And then what's even better is that all of the practical effects are there to enhance the storytelling, not to distract from a subpar narrative. I mean, it'd be one thing to have horrific imagery so that it takes attention away from the terrible writing, but here that's not the case. The story's solid, with then characters who get enough background and development to build a connection with them and become invested in their outcomes. So when we see something foul or ghastly show up, the dread and anxiety are multiplied because we care for the characters rather than just cheering on their potential demise. And then to complement the storytelling once more, the cinematography is wonderful. There are moments when we get a feel for how Piper experiences the world. Because she's not fully blind, she can see shapes and colors. So we as the audience are then treated to out of focus, almost pixelated views before the frame resolves to full focus. And the perspectives that we get for each of the characters, they're also very engaging, while also delivering massive sensations of unease or distrust. And the framing also would creatively be tight in certain instances so that we can't see the full breadth of a setting, only to then get that later on in the film where the complete picture is unsettling and ominous. Now, one technique that was super effective in making just the hair stand on end was this over-the-shoulder look at one character in particular. This character, they are already a nope when it came to their demeanor. So to have the camera peer at them from behind and then have that head turn to just capture that side profile, it was disturbing. I think what also helps the story in the creep factor is the majority of it takes place in a semi-isolated setting with a limited cast. Now, in addition to Sally Hawkins as Laura, we have Billy Barrett as Andy, Sora Wong as Piper, and then Jonah Wren Phillips as Ollie. And the small set of characters allows the storytelling to become hyper-focused on this group without distraction, drawing us into the uncomfortable world and then unleashing the savage brutality on us. I think this is where most people might have the most issue with the story, too. This is a dark and dire account that is quite harsh on how it leaves us. Now, I'm not saying it's completely devoid of hope, but like many great and haunting stories, this is going to stick with you and bother you for quite some time. And I totally appreciate the decisions that are made within the writing, but I also didn't like them when it came to the finale. And that doesn't mean that it's poor writing or directing or that they made the wrong choices. I was just hoping personally for a couple of different outcomes. I think back to like watching the UK versus US versions of The Descent. If you want something that doesn't leave you in the bell jar, you watch the US edit. But if you want a real horror ending, stick with the original UK conclusion. And not saying Bring Her Back has two different endings, just the writing made a choice on how it wanted to resolve, and it may or may not fully resonate with you. At the end of this, I was blown away by the consistent building of stress and anxiety while also developing a deep attachment to the characters. While the larger story arc is simple and predictable, the film subverts expectations by delivering monstrous visuals and creative violence, all while never losing the focus on the family angle of the plot. The pacing is efficient and steady, helped along by a competent cast who take us on a roller coaster of emotions. While actions are extreme and gnarly, the story beats are relatable and pointed, presenting the stages of grief through an unconventional manner. There's no sex, little nudity, some profanity, and then a ton of squirm-inducing violence. I give Bring Her Back 4.5 out of 5 couches. So, are there any horrors that have subverted your expectations in the way that they delivered a storytelling element? I would love to know what the movie was and then how they did it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.